We do have some breaking news. The Lions have another GM interview tomorrow. It has just been announced, according to Dave Burkett, in the last minute, that the Lions will interview Ed Dodds of the Indianapolis Colts organization.
Okay.
So we were talking earlier about, how this team has gone through this process, and I feel like they've done a great job of looking under every stone and checking out every possibility, which now appears to be, going after established GMs, great GMs in this league, in Pittsburgh's Kevin Colbert, in Seattle's John Schneider, and now they're going after Colts assistant GM Ed Dodds, who, interestingly, in the last 24 hours, removed his name from consideration for the Carolina Panthers opening. So he takes his name out of the running for the Panthers general manager job, but is willing to throw the hat in the ring for the Detroit job.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Because, look, it's kind of a default position here in Detroit, and that is, why would anybody want to come here? Right?
Well, that's the big narrative, and understandably so. Why would you come to the Lions when you could go to another franchise that's, well, frankly, not the Lions?
Yes.
I find this really interesting and intriguing, and maybe it says something to, what the Lions organization is felt like around the league as opposed to just from a fan base. I mean, maybe they're a lot more respected than you think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know. It's an interesting, little one thing to look at and make that determination.
I mean, if you're going to use history as a barometer for whether or not you want this job, if you're going with straight history, then you could say, well, they have been very patient and given their people, probably to a fault, shown way too much loyalty to their bad hires. So at least I know I'll be around for a while. With that said, they just fired a GM after 4 seasons and a coach before he finished his third, right? So, I mean, they've been that was a pretty quick trigger compared to historically what they've done. But that's an interesting name to throw back into the mix here, Ed Dodds. Because if we said, who have they not talked to that you want them to talk to? Dodds' name came up. On the coaching circles, Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Pat Fitzgerald, who maybe they've talked to now, according to Holmes out of Houston, who seems to know everybody who had bad interviews. The reporter for the Chronicle, Aaron Wilson. Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for Buffalo. But I feel like this has been a pretty damn thorough coaching and GM search by the Lions. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to hire the right guy. It just means they seem to be talking to the right people.
Yeah, I think it's been a, just from the outside looking in, it looks like they've been doing their due diligence and doing things the way that I think we can approve of to this point. There hasn't been to this point, I don't see a misstep. I think they've identified pretty credible candidates, and hopefully they able to zero in on the right one, and if there's interest from that right one. I mean, I really want to hear the next step when it comes to Kevin Colbert.
I have zero issue with them interviewing another GM candidate, especially Ed Dodds. But do you find it curious or alarming at all that if they continue to have more GM interviews and things like that, does that mean no one has stood out enough for them to be like, that's our guy? Well, I mean, we don't really have to interview anyone else. I mean, this guy is blowing us away. He's exactly what we're looking for.
Sort of. Because that was the impression I got when I saw they're adding Todd Bowles to the coaching list. I feel like, okay, and if it went down chronologically that they added Todd Bowles, maybe Todd Bowles was scheduled to interview all along and nobody in the media knew about it. But if they literally have just added Todd Bowles and Ed Dodds in the last 24 hours, I feel like that's a logical conclusion to draw, is that they've talked to a bunch of candidates. Nobody's blown their doors off, so they're going to keep looking. The other thing that could be happening here is that a GM candidate that they are zeroing in on has said, Well, I'd talk to Todd Bowles. And because of that, they're like, well, we better
New head coach. This is pretty important for this team.
248-539-9797. I am on the SB Nation Colts page, reading here about Ed Dodds.
Yep.
It's not the first time Dodds has removed his name from consideration. Now, this is a story about him taking his name out of the Carolina Panthers job in the last 24 hours. It's not the first time Dodds has removed his name from consideration for a general manager opening, as he did the same thing a year prior for the Cleveland Browns. Dodds is more than qualified enough to become an NFL general manager somewhere, but he appears comfortable in Indianapolis. He's also cited unfinished business in the past for wanting to remain in Indianapolis to see out a championship. While a general manager position presumably comes with more power and authority, greater salary, and overall prestige, it also comes with more responsibility, added pressure, and team shortfalls to individually answer to. Prior to joining the Colts, Dodds served as the Seattle Seahawks Senior Executive Personnel Director, 2015 to 2017, a longtime national scout. Colts fans are crossing their fingers that Dodds will remain in Indianapolis.
So keep this. So Dodds, does he have ties then with Saleh?
Well, he was in
From
Seattle,
Seattle
when was Saleh there still in 2015? It's a good question that should be pretty easy to answer. Give me a second. But that could be something. Could be something. He left Seattle in 2013, so they weren't there at the same time. But,
I don't have a problem with them interviewing a lot of GM candidates because honestly, their first choice might not be that GM choice. You know, the Lions might not be that guy's first choice. You know, they might have to go to a second or third choice. Even though when the press conference comes around, they'll say this guy was our choice all along. You know, but the truth is, we know that's not necessarily true. So yeah, interview all the candidates. The one guy you want may not want to come to Detroit, and that's fine. Then you got to go to the second guy. But I just brought it up as a concern. I like to bring up all the concerns possible. And if it's because no one has really stood out, then, because they're interviewing a lot of people. It just seems like every day, right? And I know the more and more teams that get eliminated from the playoffs, this is bound to happen. But it just seems like there's a lot of people. I mean, what's the list now? I mean, GMs and head coaches. It's a long list.